Hey everybody, it's time for the Sportsnet Fantasy Extra. I'm Andy Mack. Make sure you get me on Twitter at AndyMC81 and use hashtag AskAndy for any of your fantasy football questions. What a week 13, what a Sunday. We'll get to the Monday Nighter in a moment. But on this Sunday, in such a crucial fantasy football week, a lot of disappointments, a lot of players underperforming their projections. And in such an important matchup, likely for you in your fantasy league, whether it was to secure a playoff spot, to hold off somebody trying to get yours, seeding, whatever it might be, DFS contest, it was rough because there was quite a few notable underperformers. First of all, George Kittle, two catches for George Kittle at a decimated tight end position. We didn't need that. Kittle with two catches. Zach Ertz underperformed. Now, if you listen to the fantasy show every Sunday across the Sportsnet radio network Sunday mornings, you would have picked up Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert had himself a nice day, so that's a check. But Zach Ertz underperformed. George Kittle, just two catches, like I say. Christian McCaffrey, we're used to, 25, 30 fantasy points for Christian McCaffrey? Just over 17, so that's a dog. Le'Veon Bell as well. Jonathan, the waiver wire Williams, who won me my week last weekend, probably won you yours. Great pickup. All of a sudden is in a timeshare with Jordan Wilkins and did nothing. Thinking about sending him back to the waiver wire for Jonathan Williams with the Colts. So that's rough. And you look at Odell Beckham Jr., a season-long disappointment, and Tyreek Hill as well. Underperformed. So that likely hurt you. Hopefully you got some help in some other areas. The 5 hottest fantasy performers. And if you're going for a playoff spot, my fingers are crossed for you that you did have one of these guys, if not more. James White leading the pack for the Patriots, a team decimated by illness. I don't know if you heard this. They took 2 separate planes to the game because one was a flu plane and one was a healthy plane. That's how banged up health-wise that they were. But James White led everyone in PPR formats for Sunday. 37.7 fantasy points, 2 receiving touchdowns on 98 yards and 8 catches. Just a phenomenal day. Then you go to Devontae Parker. And Parker's starting to move himself away from just a PPR type of receiver. And a low-end one at that earlier in his career, just someone who flashed and you were hoping. Devontae Parker's the real deal now, folks. He's a must play. A must play, and not just in PPR. I would go half PPR standard, might be a little bit of a stretch. But certainly you look at his day, 159 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns caught on 7 catches in a win. This wasn't even garbage time. This is a win over Philadelphia. Then you go to Robert Woods, number 3 on the weekend. That LA Rams offense needed a get-right game, and they found it versus the Arizona Cardinals. You have 172 receiving yards on 13 catches for Woods. The touchdowns, the lack of touchdowns is still a big issue, but at least he got the volume share. Go up against Seattle next week. I'll be interested to see if they can carry that over. Maybe not to that extent, but at least keep this resurgence for Woods and maybe get Brandon Cooks more involved. He did next to nothing in that passing game for the LA Rams. Number 4, this was the I did not see this coming moment of the week. Darius Geis. I feel so good for this guy. 2 seasons, just littered with injuries, barely been on the field. 2 goal line touchdowns rushed in, and Adrian Peterson still got his. Adrian Peterson still rushed for almost 100 yards. Washington just wanted to take the ball completely out of Dwayne Haskins' hands. I don't blame him. But Darius Geis, he looked explosive. Wasn't just a plodding guy. Explosive and scored. So Darius Geis, 129 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, a couple catches thrown in there. And Deshaun Watson, he caught a pass from DeAndre Hopkins, but also threw 3 of his own and chucked it up for 234 passing yards in that big win over New England. Tip of the cap as well to Alshon Jeffrey in that disgusting loss, if you're an Eagles fan, to the Miami Dolphins. But Alshon Jeffrey, off of injury, came in at number 6. So a little tip of the cap because we rag on him a lot, but 9 catches and a touchdown for 137 yards. So good on you, Alshon Jeffrey. All right, here's a couple other disappointments. I want to swing back to this because the New York Jets versus the Cincinnati Bengals, that whole game looked like a terrible real-life football game, but fantasy-wise, especially for the Jets against that Bengals defense, you think, oh, right, they put up 6 total points. 6. And Sam Darnold just crumbled. Jamison Crowder, nothing. Robbie Anderson had himself a good game, but that was an end to 3 straight games of Sam Darnold putting up at least 21 fantasy points. And I'm not pulling the chute on him yet. I still think he has streaming relevance, even in your fantasy league playoff-wise, I'd still play him over Tom Brady, right? Like that's where we're at with Tom Brady. But you look at what he has done over that last stretch, those last 3 games. The 10.46 looks like it's just an outlier against the Bengals. The Jets still are not a good team, but Sam Darnold still has some upside. Also, Derek Carr and Tyrell Williams. You go and think what they could have done and what should have been a shootout with Kansas City, they just got shut down. Just totally shut down. Josh Jacobs, okay, 12 fantasy points on PPR. Darren Waller a bit better, but just a horrible day for the offense. And the Raiders fancy themselves a wildcard team. I don't know about that one. So Jets, big disappointment. But again, Sam Darnold, I wouldn't give up on him just yet because they do go and play Miami. So that could actually be a fun little back and forth with the Jets and Sam Darnold and Ryan Fitzpatrick. A couple of early week waiver wire pickups for you. Let's go to tight ends. Okay, this is something you can go every week and try to grab a tight end. I'll give you some fades too, some interesting names that are going to come up. Tyler Higbee of the Rams. Now he's only relevant because Gerald Everett was injured. If Everett is injured again, they're playing Seattle, who can be had against the tight end, but we have to keep into account that the Arizona Cardinals are historically having a historically bad season against tight ends. You can slot in, and it's not hyperbole, anybody at that tight end position, and you're going to get points. So Higbee in an offense too that is very inconsistent with using the tight end, I would be cautious. Don't be spending all your fab dollars. Don't be using a high waiver priority on Tyler Higbee. Wait. If Everett doesn't play, I'm still considering him a lower end TE2 with the potential to jump, but he's really boom or bust for me. Speaking of the Cardinals, you're going to want to pick yourself up some Vance McDonald. He's available in 50% of Yahoo leagues for the Steelers because they're playing the Cardinals. And even with Duck Hodges at quarterback, tight ends are succeeding against Arizona. So you can get him in there too. Another tight end, I'm loving Kyle Rudolph for a streamer tonight versus Seattle, who've given up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. Also, Rudolph, 4 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. Double-digit points over those stretches. And Adam Thielen is going to be out again with a hamstring. Who knows when he's going to be back. Busy Johnson, another guy you might want to pick up. Maybe if you're doing a showdown, DraftKings or DFS contest tonight, whatever. Busy Johnson got 9 targets last week, so don't overlook him and Kyle Rudolph as real options for the Monday Nighter and then going forward depending on the health of Adam Thielen. A dark horse defense ad. We dump on the Kansas City Chiefs so much. Look what they've done the last 2 weeks, okay? 22 fantasy points against Oakland, went over how they laid an egg. 11 fantasy points the game before that. They had the bye, and then the game before that they had 11. And they're playing New England. So a contrarian play on DFS, a streaming option if you stream defenses in your fantasy league. Don't overlook the Kansas City Chiefs because the Patriots, just by name value, people, oh, we'll stay away from that. That offense is not what it used to be. It's in December. Yeah, it's in Foxborough. This is Patriot time. But you can play Kansas City even on the road. So you look at the Patriots, they've scored 22 points or less in each game in the past month. You don't have to be afraid of them. Waiver wire QB ads, like I said, I'd still roll with Darnold as a bounce back. Fitzpatrick revenge game once again against the New York Jets. Last time he played, he had 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So dial up, wave the wand for Fitzmagic again. Darnold and Fitzmagic, I think those could be 2 real fun plays. Some fades to go into this week. The Miami backfield. Kalen Ballage got carted off. Wish him well. But people got a little excited about, oh, Patrick Laird ran in a touchdown, got a 2-point conversion. He's a plotter. He's not dynamic. Miami's offense, as nice as that win was, the offensive line stinks. The game script typically does not lend itself to the run, and you always have Myles Gaskin kind of lurking back there. I'm just not interested in the Miami backfield at all. I know a lot of people are going to try to pick up Patrick Laird. Don't chase. Just stay away. Raheem Mostert as well. Not the savior at running back, folks, okay, for the 49ers. Matt Breida sat this week to be off, to be ready for this upcoming weekend. So they sat and just say, okay, hey, be off this week, get ready, and come back a week from now healthy. So you're going to have Breida back there. Tevin Coleman, despite the down week and Mostert flashing, and actually double-digit fantasy points the last 2 weeks, and really spiked this week for Mostert. It's getting too cloudy for me. Too much of a committee. It's going to be Coleman, Breida's back, Mostert, And he had a good week earlier in the season. People chased him and he disappointed. So I'm going to fade away from him. Also for the Packers, Lazard, great game. Over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown, but only 3 catches on 3 targets. Great, he caught all the targets, but only 3 catches. And that's been consistent. Only 2 or 3 passes his way in each game. That is a lot of receivers that Aaron Rodgers looks at. I just don't think he has the volume. Now, if he catches a touchdown, sure, that's a big if. And I'm more interested in some consistent receiver volume there. So again, I'm going to fade on Lazard. If you're in a deep league for any of these guys, of course, and you need to pick one up because there's no better option, sure, but don't be counting on them to be the saviors of your week. Make sure you check out too the Under the Wire article I put out every Tuesday on sportsnet.ca, and send me any of your fantasy football questions on Twitter at AndyMC81 using hashtag AskAndy. You've been watching the Sportsnet Fantasy Extra.